Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Nosferatu. So in this episode, a lot of interesting things went down, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there's the whole aspect of, obviously, once again, Haley being kidnapped, but the cops look at it as just kind of a thing of like, oh, her mom took her. But obviously, you have Vic knowing that there's more to it and everything, and she uses a bridge, but her bridge takes her to Bing, which we know Bing is associated with, but she's like, no, it can't be. It's like, she's acting weird, because I thought at first, I was like, okay, she knows that he's behind it, but she's trying, like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna come back with a different plan, but it's like, I didn't know what she was necessarily going to do, but I was like, oh, she's figured him out. But when she goes back to Maggie, she's like, yeah, the bridge is busted or something. It's like, no, Inscapes never get it wrong. She's like, well, what about your Scrabbles? It's like, no, like, it was me who misread them. Once again, it's like her Scrabbles don't always give her like specific names, so that's why it probably came out as Smittens rather than Mittens, because it was the cat's actual name. So it probably, just not her Scrabbles work, but maybe it is just kind of like, oh, I misread it wrong. So it's kind of interesting to know that it can be interpreted wrong. I mean, to be fair, you got it like 95% of the way, so I think that in itself is an accomplishment, but you can see. But Vic doesn't want to believe. It's like, no, Bing's not that bad of a guy, so there's no way he's behind all this. So she goes to try and rest. One of my favorite scenes of this is like when Maggie's in the library talking to Joe, and that guy shushes her, and she's like, okay, you don't shush me. You don't ever shush me. I'm a librarian. I shush you. So shh. Sorry. I loved her getting petty like that. It was just so funny to see that side of her personality like that, because she's all like, just to see her kind of get a little snippy like that was kind of nice. But nevertheless, Vic goes back to her mom. And it's actually kind of sad, the whole situation, like with her mom and Craig, like, because Craig was like, oh yeah, I want to check in on Vic, and she's like, yeah, all that stuff that's going on in your family. He's like, yeah, me and my husband, we try to, help out with that situation, which, it sounds like Craig's got a very complicated family situation, but it's like, I need you to stay away from my daughter. I'm like, wait, what? Because she's like, her eyes getting red, her kind of being off like that. It's like, you were off getting high. He's like, no, like the fact is he's kind of saying like, you don't even know Vic if you even think that, because she would never do something like that. But it's like, yeah, stay away from my daughter, because it's like, in her mind, it's like, my daughter's in this condition. The fact of the matter is, I just want to take care of her because she's my only daughter. So obviously she's going to be very overprotective. But it's kind of sad. Craig kind of has that angle, almost feel like it almost, because I even brought it up before, like last episode or whatever, it does seem like he's latching onto her. But to be fair, he kind of made it seem like she's the only, because I think it's more than just friendship. I think he has a thing for her, but it's also like, we kind of hear about his complicated family situation. So it's like, she's probably like the only person in town he really has. And so it almost seems a little possessive, like, no, you're mine and no one else's. So it almost kind of has that vibe. So that's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like Craig might turn into a creeper later on. I hope that isn't the case. Because, obviously he knows about the bridge and everything, so he knows of what it does to her. So he knows, like, oh, she's not feeling good. It's got to be that whole bridge situation. So he might be an ally in this situation. Hopefully he doesn't turn into an enemy. Hopefully he does be an ally. But it just seems like they're setting him up for something. But maybe not. He might be, other than Maggie, he might be the only person she can confide in with all of this. So we'll see where that goes. But it's, because obviously, like, once again, it's that situation of, like, you're not trying to, you can't really blame her mom, because her mom is just trying to do her best. She's even talking to her husband, being like, you talk to her. She chose to live with you. She'll listen to you. She won't listen to anything I have to say. And actually turns into this sad conversation between Vic and her mom of like, when was the first time he hit you? And she's like, honestly, I don't remember. The fact of the matter is, they were young when they fell in love, and things changed like after he came back from the Gulf War, or just specifically Gulf, but I'm assuming she's referencing the Gulf War. But nevertheless, it's like, they get super drunk and they fight, and she'd wake up with a fat lip. And the sad thing is, like, for her, it's kind of like the reason why she stayed is because it's the thing of like, oh yeah, he's going to change. It wasn't always like that. There were good times too. And then, enough time passes, years pass, and it's like they have Vic, and it just became that situation of, he's literally been in my life more than my life has existed without him in it, So it's kind of like almost, why not? If you've ever seen the cartoon Moral Oral, it's kind of a similar situation. It's kind of like they got together. Why? Why not? Oral's parents are kind of like that. And it's kind of a very, it's a complicated situation is kind of what it comes down to. But it does teach Vic that the fact is, because her mom says, he's good, your dad is good, because Vic had said to her mom's like, when did you notice? She's like, how long have you known? She's like, like we saw when she kind of figured it out, but for her, she's like, looking back in retrospect, I've always kind of known on some level, but I just didn't want to really admit it because I still wanted to look like my dad. I needed him. He had to be a good guy. So, you weren't willing to see the potential flaws in him because she worships her dad. She worships her dad. She looks up to him. He's her hero. But, her mom was like, he is good, but then he's not. It's like, the fact is, people are like that, but we have a tendency just to look at the good, and that made her kind of reflect on her Bing situation. She wasn't willing to see the evil with it, but she was kind of only willing to see the good, because it's like, Bing's a good guy. He'd never do anything like that. So she goes back. Sadly for her, it was by the time she got back, he'd already dealt with Sharon, because we see kind of at the beginning and at the, the end, his complicated situation of Bing, because at first it's like, you're kind of at the beginning, you're like, okay, Bing's dad's a bit of a douchebag. Even turns out the gas mask is from him, so it's almost symbolic in a sense, but I'll get to that in a second. But it's like, oh yeah, your dad's kind of a douche, but it's like, oh, he's playing with it. It's like, okay, maybe he's not that bad. And then he pushes you and tells you, get up, retard. I'm like, okay, your dad's officially an asshole. And then his mom was there to kind of console him and everything. And then we see that, I guess, years and years later, his dad's still just being an asshole to him, to the point when he's putting up the decoration, she just turns around and just goes, boom, shoots him in the head with the nail. I'm like, wow, killing him. That's interesting. The mom discovers it, and it's like, okay, so what happened? I knew something was up the moment, like he had Sharon, because he gassed Sharon, and he was telling her to like, oh, basically say, I love you, Bing. It was almost kind of like, okay, that was exactly what his mom said. So it's like, it's just some twisted thing of making every woman kind of like your mom or whatever. And it seems like that might be the case, because we find out, because we see, it seemed like he was about to start making out with his mom, but it seems and sadly sounds like it was a lot more to it. And it's like, on the twisted, it doesn't just stop there. Not only did he do that, which was twisted, he killed her afterwards. Because I guess for him, it's almost like her being like, oh, against him. It's like, oh, she was always my ally. Oh, I love her. But it's like, wait, you don't love me in the same way. You don't accept me. Oh, you have to go. He's just, maybe all that constant abuse, the love and abuse just kind of twisted him. And it seems like, because it looked like Sharon might have been naked from the grave, so it looks like a situation of what he did to his mom. It seems like he did the exact same to her, because she had a nail in her head. So it's almost like, I mean, I think this is the first time Bing's done it, but I think for him, he was almost reliving what he did to his mom, because he wanted someone to love him, and it's almost because he is almost like a child in his brain, which is interesting, because that kind of goes into the whole Charlie situation of like every child just wants someone to love them. So I think it's kind of a similar thing. He just kind of went about it in a very twisted way. Like I said, it's just everything's kind of jumbled and messed up. And obviously Vic is taking this very hard, because like she didn't want to listen to her inscape when it took her to Bing in the first place. And because of that, by the time she came back, he'd already killed Sharon. And so that weighs heavy on her. It's like, it's my fault. Like, I had the chance to stop this and I didn't. Maggie literally came to me about this whole rape situation. I didn't want to listen. Haley got kidnapped. Her mom got kidnapped. She told me to listen to my inscape. I didn't. So that weighs heavy on Vic to be like, I should have done, so that will, and it's kind of sad that, that she's going to blame herself, and like that death's on me. And so I think going forward, she's going to try and I'm curious to see what the conversation is going to be like between her parents of like, oh, how does she find the body? Maybe she just stumbled across it. Like, the fact of the matter is that's tough for anyone to come across a dead body. But obviously everyone's under the impression like, oh, she just ran off with Haley. But now it's like, oh no, Sharon's dead. Haley's gone. And it's like, okay, the person who did all this will be caught. But then Vic was like, they won't. Because she knows who's behind all this. She knows what he's capable of. And it's like, they're not ones powerful enough to stop this. Almost being like, it has to be me. I had the power to stop this. I had the power to stop it, and I didn't. But I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to save Haley. It's the least I can do. What's also interesting too is her bridge took her to Sharon instead of Haley. I'm wondering, I'm curious how that works. Was it because she was in a moving target, like the wraith is on the move, so there was no way to get to it specifically, or is it, so it took her to Sharon, or is it a situation of like, oh, Sharon is, she was in more danger than Haley. At least Haley was going to still live, but maybe the universe knew that Sharon was going to die next, so it made it so that her escape took her to Sharon instead. Or was it just because it meant to take her to Sharon to save her, but also to take her to Bing, because Bing's the means to going after Charlie. I'm wondering, because it didn't seem like, I mean, maybe they referenced it on the news, but it didn't sound like they knew, because I feel like there would have been a picture of Bing, so I'm sure she didn't say anything to anyone about Bing being the one behind all this. I mean, he sees the news and stuff like that, but I'm thinking for her, it's probably, Vic's probably going to handle it herself, because it's like, no, it's up to me to deal with this, you know, so I'm very interested to see where that ends up taking us. It seems like Bing is panicking because he wasn't expecting anyone to find her body. I mean, fortunately, he didn't know about, you know, Vic's whole situation with the bridge and everything, which is interesting because for the first time her and Charlie interact, he's even like, oh, the fact of the matter is, let's meet face to face. It's interesting because he got the information out of Haley, and it's like, she's a girl. Because at first he's like, oh, like, you know, what boy rode the bridge? And she's like, that's stupid. For your information, it's a girl. And then she kind of felt bad because it was supposed to be a secret. It didn't even click in my head to think like, right, Haley, he would take Haley just not only because she's a kid, but also because she knows Vic's identity, you know, the one who has the shorter way bridge and everything. So that was kind of a fascinating aspect to it. But he made that like remark about like, it's always the girls that are the most interesting ones. I wonder, is that supposed to be like a reference to like how the other person that stood in his way before was Jolene and everything. So, but like I said, getting back to what I was saying before, like I am curious like how that whole, can her Inscape not interact with someone else's Inscape? You know, it's like when you're using your Inscape, well, to be fair, his car is a bike. It's, I mean, not a bike, a knife. It's not, because I think Christmas Land is his Inscape, but his car is the knife, which that's interesting too, because obviously his knife has other aspects to it. Like it does have a bit of magic to it. Like he was able to make it snow in there. Like when Haley tried to reach her hands to the front, like there's like a little bit of a portal kind of separating the back and the front, so they can't interact with each other to a certain extent. It never clicked in my head till now, because I haven't really talked about it too much, but the whole kids becoming vampire situation. Reason why I haven't really done that is because I don't know if that's necessarily what they are. You can assume the whole titling, Nosferatu and stuff, this had something to do with vampires and stuff like that. That's how I always figured, but you never know with certain continuities whether they really refer to something as a vampire. Like, once again, the thing I always go back to is Hemlock Grove, where they're umpirs, but I mean, that's literally just vampires in a different language, I think. But, you know, I'm curious, but it didn't even click in my head to think, like, right, if they're becoming vampires, it's about keeping them young forever is kind of his point. And it kind of plays out the way I thought it did, too, because I feel like the reason why Charlie was doing all he did, talking about not hurting kids and stuff like that, it's because he himself, as a kid, he even compares himself to Haley, be like, oh yeah, I had a Sharon, her name was Fanny, his mom, and it's like she indulged in selfish desires and stuff like that, and kind of left me to my own devices, and he was kind of left alone. He didn't really have any friends, and it's like, but Haley, look at me, like, I'm here to save you, like, but that's why, like, he's, in a sense, he's almost like a kid in himself. Like, I wasn't saved as a kid, but I'm here to save these other kids. But it seems like he's obviously getting a benefit from it. Once again, it didn't even click in my head to think about this either, of like, that might be his price with all of this. Well, not necessarily the kids themselves, but his growing old and young. Because the thing is, like, because I didn't even think about it, because like I said, everyone's got their thing. Like, I makes you wonder what Jolene's price was, but obviously for Vic, it's her eye and like the headaches, and then for Maggie, it's her stutter. But like, what price does Charlie have to pay? We haven't really seen one, and we still, because I was wondering if it was the whole aspect of like, oh, he's kidnapping kids and they're making him younger, but it's like, because at first it's like, whoa, you're getting young. He's like, yeah, this is interesting. Maybe before now that had never really kicked in, but something shifted, something's changed. I guess because he was becoming an old man now, and that childlike wonderment now is kind of like, now he's realizing like, oh, when I take kids, I get younger again. Maybe, you know, trying to capitalize on his youth that might have been taken from him, just like he's trying to save these kids from the potential future that will strip away their youth. Maybe he's got a similar situation going on, but in reverse of like, oh, he gets youth from all of this. I don't know. Maybe he's got it figured out, and maybe that's the reason why he's doing all this, or maybe not. I don't know, because it seems like he was an old man back then. So could it be a situation if he just stopped aging, and then recently it's turned into the situation of he started reverse aging? I have no idea. I'm very interested to kind of dive into that more. Kind of got our first look at Christmas Land to a more direct look when we saw Haley enter it later on. It's also sad too that lady was trying to save her from the it's like, oh, she found the ambulance. She's like, don't worry, sweet, I got you. And it's like, nope, Haley ended up proceeding to pull her into the car and kill her. And then I love Charlie coming back. He's seeing the blood print, and he's like, kind of almost like proud of her, like, oh yeah, there you go, enjoy your meal or something, which is kind of twisted. Also, further proof of how twisted Christmas Land is, we saw a reindeer that was nothing but skin and, like, not even skin and bones. It was literally just bones. Once again, furthering my example of this is literally Christmas. This is literally Halloween Town's version of Christmas. You know, so that's what it kind of immediately made me think of before. It still makes me think of it even more so because of that, you know, so. And once again, the only reason why that's in my head is just because of Kingdom Hearts. So, because I have not seen the Nightmare Before Christmas movie in a very, very long time. But it does seem like, obviously, Charlie, like, he's saving specific kids, like we already know. Because the reason why he was able to kind of convince Haley is because it's like, oh, like, the fact of the matter is, I'm like you, I have a hole in my heart, and that hole in my heart can only be filled with one friend. But it's like, oh, do you really have a friend? Oh, yeah, Vic. But it's like, is Vic really your friend? Because she never decided that she knew about your home life, but she didn't take you away on her bridge, which we didn't know. Well, Vic couldn't even if she wanted to, so it doesn't work like that. Plus, she's not in a position to be taking someone's kid from, you know, she's got her own family situation to kind of deal with too. So, I mean, everyone's kind of got family issues. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing of this. Like, everyone in the show has family issues. Charlie has family issues. Bing had family issues. Craig has family issues. Every kid being taken has family issues. You know, so I think that's, you know, it's just an interesting aspect, and I think that's supposed to be the overarching connection between all of this. I wonder will we ever get to see inside of Christmas Land? It probably won't be until much later, because obviously it still looks all Christmassy and stuff, but we've seen that there is kind of like a nightmarish aspect to it, so I'm curious when probably won't see it until later on, until Vic actually gets inside of Christmas Land. Now, would that be of her own free will, of like she's sneaking or breaking into there? Could, like, once again, the whole conversation of could her Inscape take her to Charlie's Inscape? Because I believe Christmas Land is his Inscape. So, like, could it? Because it doesn't seem like it can directly take her there. Because, like I said, I don't think Inscapes can interact with each other. Maybe they can. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. Or will it be, because obviously she's going to have her meeting with Charlie, because Charlie's like, oh, I know who you are now, so we need to meet face to face. I'll set up the meeting. I'll be in touch soon. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all that takes us. Obviously, her parents are going to be keeping a closer eye on her because of this, so Vic's going to probably have to try and sneak around that, not telling them what she's up to, because for one, they wouldn't believe her. Also, you know, in their own ways, once again, you know, definitely her mom, but her dad too, trying to be protective. Even her dad being like, oh, let's have all this nice time we'll spend together, like, you know, we'll do the things that you really like and everything. She's like, yeah, but obviously she doesn't care about that, because like she's so focused on this loss right now that, you know, all she cares about right now is going after Charlie and getting Haley back. So I'm very interested to see where all of this ultimately takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.